artists should have the resources they need to do the work that runs through their veins. And with the gathering of resources, we will one day abolish the phrase starving artist. Day and night, the movement does not cease, for creativity never sleeps. We are Artist Uprising.
First of all, I'm happy to have you guys back on again. Obviously, you guys came the last time and we did kind of like the teaser episode, so thank you for coming back to kind of talk a little bit more about Sweet Tooth and everything.
Yeah, we love it. Now we're like in this more moody like den with all the things happening.
We wanted to set this specifically for you guys, obviously the photo and everything as well. Shout out to Jonathan Zizzo for the photo. We need to hit rewind because you guys are both so talented artistically and really embody what it looks like to pursue professionally and creatively. Where does your artistic journey begin individually, and how did you guys meet?
Man, what a question.
It's loaded.
I mean, it's going to be totally different for both of us.
I love it.
My artistic journey, to be honest, I mean, my day job, I'm a designer, creative director, so I, growing up, was really into art, and I'm old now, so like rewinding, as you said, back to high school, whenever, you know, when the college that I applied to was like, hey, bring your portfolio in, bring your book in. You know, when I was in high school, like, we weren't in like Photoshop and all that. So like I was like, Dad, can I borrow your truck? I'm gonna bring in like my sculptures, my drawings, my paintings, blah, blah, blah. So I kind of learned very quickly that being an artist, maybe I didn't have the thick skin for, like the judgment. So I opted to become a designer because that's more function and I can kind of judge it like, oh, this is working. So my process kind of starts out with like finding as much information as I possibly can and kind of like distilling it down into like a sentence. Because I'm usually working in an advertising capacity.
Right.
And so I'm like, hey, does this idea check every single box in this sentence? And if it doesn't, and if I'm collaborating with someone or managing a team or whatever it is, it's a really good way to kind of like weed out bad ideas without making it personal. It's like, it just doesn't fit the brief, doesn't, you know. So that's kind of my process. Hers, on the other hand, is probably way more complex.
So I'm art and Cole is design.
Okay.
So we learned this working together very early, where it's like, I like to be in the process and kind of like find my way through, but Cole's gonna know where we're going before we get there. Wow. He's like, I know what's at the end before we start, you know? And so that's really what we did. My mom's an art teacher, and so she put me into piano lessons also, and I think my journey as a musician didn't start until I figured out that you could write your own music, because when you're learning piano, I was playing classical piano and competing and going to like sonatina festivals and like as a little kid competing in these things that are so structured.
Wow.
And you have to play for like 15 minutes at a time with no sheet music, two adults who are judging you. So whenever I figured out like, oh, I can write my own songs, that was like a whole game changer for me. So we met through music. Cole was managing bands and more on the business side of things, and then I was in a band.
I'm really interested to hear how you're going to tell this.
So there's a long version and a short version, but in the very short version, being a musician.
In the middle. Just
in
give
the
me
middle.
a middle version.
You market to your audience, and that was back when like really Facebook was a way to connect with everybody coming to your shows.
Mm-hmm.
So like, okay, you have a show, people RSVP, and then I was just adding literally everyone who RSVP'd to the show as my friend. And he doesn't believe me. So I added him on Facebook, and immediately he was like, do I know you? And I was like, yeah, you're coming to my show. And he's like, I'm not going to your show. I'm managing the band that's opening for you guys.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know who you are.
Was that
and I was in a really
play on like you flirting with her?
I was in a very serious relationship at the time.
Oh, okay.
It was
so
very serious.
I was like,
it was so serious.
2 years is serious.
Right.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
And so I was just like, I don't know this person, and I normally just don't even like. Normally, I don't put myself in a position. Yeah. I'm a paranoid person, so like I just don't I'm like, do I know you? Are you chatting me? Like, and so I'll let her tell the rest because mine's the long version.
Okay.
Yeah, so we met at the show. He's like a tall guy, dark, so he looks like a lot of different people in a club, like tall guy, dark, you know, hair, beard, whole thing. And I thought he was my friend, and I like went running up to him as fast as I possibly could after this weird encounter happened on Facebook, and I was like, hey, what's up? And then I was like, oh, that's that one dude that was like, do I know you? Standing there with his girlfriend.
Oh.
I immediately was like, oh, I gotta go, I'll be right back. And then I just like went and hid in the dressing room and like didn't come out.
Had you performed yet already?
No. And my girlfriend was like, who's that? I was like, I don't know who that is. I just met her on Facebook, but I don't know who that is actually.
But you hadn't performed yet, and did you perform the?
And then I had to go up on stage, and they're like in the audience, and I was just like, wow.
Is she like looking at you at that point, like?
No, she
okay.
knew why we were there.
Okay.
Yeah, the band that I was working with at the time was opening
Yeah.
for her band, but I didn't know her band.
So that's how you met.
That's how we met. Yeah.
Okay, so back up. I was working at the Performing Arts Center, and we had a donor party. And so we had a party, and all these flowers were out. And at the end of the party, I was like, what are you doing with the flowers? And they're like, oh, we're just going to throw them away. And I was like, no, you can't throw them away. So we had like this amount of flowers, like massive amount of flowers. And then I bought him a birthday card. I don't even know how or when. But at the party, they were doing stage makeup because it was the Performing Arts Center. And so we had the Grinch with us. We had old lady makeup. And there was one more, and I can't remember what it was, but I just remember my friend's husband had like full Grinch makeup on at Vickery Park. And so Cole shows up, and he's like,
You and your friends.
Yeah.
It was cool. I just didn't expect it.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, and then I was like, I'm very forward, so I was like texting him under the table, and I was like, you're hot. And like,
she like went to the bathroom, and I like looked down at my phone, and my phone was like almost dead, and her friend was sitting next to me, and I was like, hey, has she had a lot to drink? Or like, she was like, oh, she has no filter whatsoever. Why? I was like, no reason. So I just like put the phone away, like I didn't even see it.
Yeah.
And we just had the rest of our dinner, I guess, and
yeah, we just hung out, and then we were walking to our cars, and Cole was like, what are you doing tomorrow? And then we hung out every single day for like 6 months.
That's
And that
just
was,
the
like,
way it happens.
dude, it was so crazy. Like there was so many like up and downs to where like we would hang out, and I was like, you know what, I'm not really ready to be in a relationship or anything like that.
Right.
So she'd be like, cool, don't freaking talk to me at all. Like I'm not into being led on. And I was like, understandable.
Totally.
And then I would just like get Jencey on the brain and be like, hey, you want to hang out? She's like, not really. Christmas time rolled around. So my birthday was in June, and we kind of hung out sporadically until December.
Yeah.
Christmas Day, we do the whole family Christmas thing. I'm out of there. I don't want to be, at my grandmother's house on Christmas night. It's just a lot going on. And so I'm like, I'm going to the bar. And I met my buddy up at the Libertine, and it's probably like, I don't know, 12:30, midnight.
And
so
I'm in bed.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, what are you doing? Come have a drink. And I'm like in my pajamas, and I'm like,
Okay.
I'm like, you can do it.
You're like, I'm doing nothing. Totally. Yeah. Come on,
I'm
me.
like, okay.
She comes out, shows up, we have a good time. Couple days pass, I'm like, you know what, I don't know if I'm ready. Again. And so she's like, dude, I don't ever want to hear from you again. And so like, I think a week or maybe like a few days passed. And like a lot of people that end up getting married are like, kind of ask that stereotypical, just normal question of like, hey, could I spend the rest of my life with this person?
Yeah.
And so that was kind of like going through my head, and then it kind of like reversed in some way, which was like, can I spend the rest of my life without this person? And I was like, oh man, I don't think so. Like there's just so much going on. Like I don't think that I can. I've gotten a little bit of it, and I can't live without it. And so we started dating, and we dated for 6 months and got engaged, and we're engaged for a month. And like everyone was like, are you guys pregnant? And we're like, you'll see.
Yeah, I was like, I don't think so.
But yeah, that was in August. That was 10 years ago.
Wow. So 10 years. Yeah. And within that time span, you guys have also been a part of a duo, French 75, which, by the way, has an amazing live set with a light show. How did you guys build that whole live show and set together?
Man, I would love to take credit for that. Right. Jencey can probably put it in a lot more shorter, less technical term.
And also to add on to that, when did the idea of you guys come where you were like, you know what, we should be in a band?
So I was previously in another band, like
Yeah.
a pop folk band. And when we got married, I quit touring with that band. We were actually about to go to the UK. We had just toured with Bowling for Soup, and Bowling for Soup does like these crazy tours in the UK.
Yeah.
And they're pretty rowdy. And so I was like, you know what? I think I'm done being in this band. I had been in the band for a while. And you know how it goes, like you go from being in one band and you're like, I want to try a different type of music and I want to say different things. And so I was just writing at home. I had a piano, and so I taught myself Logic, and I was like recording myself, you know, all the instruments, strings, like everything. And Cole's like, I'm a drummer. I can put some percussion on here. And I was like, cool, because I cannot do that at all. And so then he started programming drums on. And all the songs, like, I don't even really know where that first album came from. Like, I don't remember writing those songs. I don't remember how I had those songs. I have these weird voice recordings where I sound absolutely terrible, like singing all the songs. And somehow they like became full songs. But Tom Polch is a producer in Austin, and he's worked with like tons and tons and tons of bands, and he had produced my previous band, Smile Smile. And so he worked with us to mix all of the songs and get them to like a really cool point.
Yeah.
And we knew that we wanted to play live shows, and we have a good friend, Lee Duck, and he has a company, Duck Lights, that's in LA. And so the cool thing is he was really the pioneer of doing these automated light shows where he's actually using MIDI to control the lights.
Oh.
So you can take your tracks. So if you're playing with tracks, and when I say playing with tracks, if you're not a musician, like a lot of musicians have tracks that they'll run when they play. So it might be like samples of like keys, or you might have vocals running, like all kinds of things. But some people are running it through a program like Ableton or Logic, and so you're running it live. So with this light show, you can actually put all these MIDI files in, and MIDI is basically just like data.
Yeah.
And so that data tells the lights like when to move, what color, when to turn on, and you can have one for each song. And so if you set up your whole set, you don't even need anybody to run your lights for you. Like the whole program will run. And Lee's doing these like things for like Halsey and Zed, and he's like, he has a studio in LA, but we were really kind of his first guinea pig. And we knew Cole had the design of like the triangle, and so our live setup is a triangle with like bars that go out kind of like from that. And we have these 4 floodlights. So at any point in time, the floodlights might come on, and it's like the brightest thing, and you just see the audience, but it just like completely washes them out.
It's more or less like, it's not a strobe that blinks, but it'll just kind of, it's like a blinder. And then we also have like 4 of these like motorized moving heads. But like, I mean, Lee, he's come to a point where he's like invented new lights. So he's invented these like new light bars that can run like low res media. It's not just color. Like if you have and sync these things together, they can run like video files. It's super, super, super nice.
And you guys both being creatives from the art and just the creative world, I'm sure working with someone like him was it just enhanced like everything that you guys have even more.
Yeah, and even just like touring in the past, like I wasn't a touring musician, but I did tours with other bands. Yeah. And you know, like I wasn't trying to put lighting designers out of business, or like your had a house doing all the lighting and stuff like that. We just wanted a light show that would reflect the music and not just like reflect the sound, but like every single beat, every single like movement and like progression and all that kind of stuff. So like for us, I mean, it was a no-brainer to work with him, and I mean, we ended up pulling him into Sweet Tooth. So he's done a lot of lighting design for Sweet Tooth too. So.
We wanted the live show to be more of a show.
Right.
Like instead of, I didn't want people watching me, I wanted people to know like we're gonna go see this show and we're gonna watch the lights and we're gonna hear music and like you're gonna see us sometimes, but it's really less about the musician and just more about being like performance art, really.
Because I mean, it's electronic music.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we wanted to change was the idea of like electronic artists going up, pressing spacebar, and letting your tracks run and just singing to it, which there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but we wanted to perform. And Jencey definitely told a different version of like how our band came to fruition, but like after she got out of her old band, she was like, I really don't want to make music anymore. And we were married for like 6 months, and she was like, you want to make some music? What do you do? I was like, oh, I used to play drums in my church, so like maybe I can make beats. Like, and she just taught herself Logic, so I kind of got in there and started, like basically she wrote the songs in a classic singer-songwriter style, and then I put beats over them.
Wow.
And then Tom did his magic and mixed and mastered it, and yeah.
But that first album, I mean, we recorded all the instruments, Cole sang, and that was like in our basement of our first house. And it wasn't like we were rushing it,
No.
you know?
Yeah.
And
We're still
so-
not.
Yeah, we don't
We just
really
make
ever,
music
like,
when we wanna
rush
make music.
it because
The best. It's the best when you don't
Yeah.
rush.
You're
I
just-
love that.
What are you gonna say?
Yeah. Are you guys planning on releasing any more new music? Or do we have any like?
Yes.
Yes.
We
This
have
is an
So
exclusive.
much music.
I'm sure like over the past few years, right?
Yeah.
What's that look like? What can we expect?
So we've been working with our producer Left Right, and he just moved to LA, so we're working remote and he's teaching at Icon out there, but we have 2 remixes and 1 original that we've been holding on. One of the remixes is with Mystery Schools.
Love Mystery Skulls.
So
Yes.
super excited about that one. But
Mystery
we're
Skulls is great.
working on some new content,
Yeah,
and
Lewis
we've had
is
that.
the
We just
best.
haven't released it yet. We've been
Yeah,
waiting.
and just kind of working with Chris, Left Right. His name's Chris Lund. He is a savant, but we were used to working with him in town at his studio.
Right.
So now that everything's remote and he's in a different city, basically our process now is like trying to demo as much as we can out at home. Send it
him
off.
the tracks.
Send him the tracks and
He
just
builds
kind of
it.
work
Yeah.
back and forth. Yeah.
That's gotta be cool, especially with everything that you have going on with Sweet Tooth, which for our listeners and viewers is why we're here too, because it's the immersive art experience featuring artists from all over, and you currently have one in Allen, Texas, correct?
Yes. Our first Sweet Tooth Hotel popped up in Dallas.
Yes.
And Allen, Texas, that's the first location that we have that's kind of outside, that's a full installation. Because we've done pop-ups in Fort Worth.
Right.
And pre-2020, we were looking at like other cities to kind of take things out to. But Sweet Tooth Hotel really is a platform for local artists, and that's
Right.
what it started as, and not just art like painting or sculpture, things like that, but we also worked with like musicians. Really,
You had a stage.
yeah, we had a stage.
Yeah.
That whole stage, all that production was done by Lee Duck.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So really
Full
it's
circle
meant to
moments
be a
Yeah.
platform for any type of art or medium. You know, we have videographers and photographers and music videos, and we've had a fashion show with Tony and Guy. And so Sweet Tooth Hotel is meant to just be a platform for any type of creative. And it's cool because it all gets integrated with the physical art, and there's just so many collaborations that happen like on top of that.
And you just made an announcement, I know I can say this,
Yes.
that there is a new Sweet Tooth that's going to be in downtown Dallas.
Smack dab in the
You-
middle.
Yes.
Tell us about it.
So this is pretty crazy. It's literally in the middle of downtown on Elm Street. It's our biggest space we've ever had. We signed a 10-year lease. So
Nice.
we are like digging in. There's a huge parking garage on top of it with a rooftop deck. So we're definitely doing some events and stuff up on the rooftop too. But yeah, that space is going to have 9 gallery spaces. We have a bar, which we just announced our cocktail lounge partner is Calarosa Tequila.
Okay.
And that is Adam Levine and Bahati Prinsloo's tequila company.
Wow.
So they're going to collab and have an art installation
Yeah.
and like custom cocktails, which is crazy because that's a whole other like music tie-in, but like 2 other musicians who have a tequila brand.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
so it's cool to have other creatives that, are going to be able to collaborate.
How did they find out about your space?
We work with a lot of different like spirits companies, and Calarosa just launched recently, but they're all over the U.S. And so they have a rep in Dallas, and we started talking, and we were like, oh man, that'd be so cool if they had a dedicated installation, because really in Dallas, to have something immersive like that, there's not a lot of spaces, like East Coast, West Coast, there's clubs and like huge, venues like that they were doing things at. But we met with the rep, and she took it back to their team, and they all talked about it, and they are super excited because basically it's the Cali Rosa cocktail lounge.
Wow.
And so it's their dedicated space, and our bar is going to be the first infinity mirrored bar. So we have a full light show that's being programmed for the bar.
So when she says the bar, just to be specific, it's like the actual bar, and then the room itself, everything in the room will be like mirrored or chrome, or it's going to be pretty intense. Hopefully.
Wow.
So everything's going to be mirrored out, full automated light show in the space. So it's going to be crazy.
Do you have your artist selected for the space yet? You do.
We do.
Wow. Okay. And how far in advance? When's the light opening?
If everything goes, permits permitting, we're
Yeah.
saying summer. But sometime this year, there's a lot of things you have to get through with the cities.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm excited that we signed a really long lease on this one, because there's so much that you have to do up front to kind of get through and get the business open. But we're all working and building, and so it's either going to be summer or it's going to be a little bit later this year. But we were talking, and I was like, it doesn't hurt to have more time to do anything.
Yeah. It's the same thing that you guys said with music. Like you weren't in a rush to do that as well. Do you think, like, as far as, having the patience with the time and stuff, do you feel like that's also been a part of why the whole Sweet Tooth and whatnot has been so successful, is because you've taken your time and not rushed the process?
What's crazy is originally we used to do these installs in 6 weeks.
Wow.
Well,
Now,
we installed
looking
them in
back,
6
it's
weeks.
crazy. But
Yeah.
our longest period that we've planned out is a year. And we've had fiber artists, because that medium takes so long to do, that they started a year in advance. And then, we got to opening. But now I think that what I've learned, because I have no patience, and this is something personally that I want to work on for myself, but I have no
Right.
patience. And it's just like, you can't really control anything except yourself and what you can prepare for and what you can create. And so if it's going to take longer, it's going to take longer. But it doesn't mean never. It just means not right now.
Right. Well, for anyone in the creative industry, like, we know there's a narrative floating around that artists are bad at business, or some version of that. And there's definitely a learning curve and responsibility on artists to take the initiative to learn the business behind the scenes. But it doesn't seem like you guys struggle with the business, having been in art-driven fields for so long and now running Sweet Tooth Hotel, which is massive. How did you guys go to this place as business-savvy artists, and can you speak to the business side of things?
I do my part, like all the branding, anything like advertising related. Like she is definitely like the marketing guru, and I don't call anyone a guru, but she is. And really, our artists make us who we are. But as far as like being business savvy, like, yeah, that's definitely not me. And so I'm super fortunate to have a partner and a wife that knows how to do all these things.
Right.
So when people say like, oh, you guys own Sweet Tooth or you run Sweet Tooth, it's like, Jencey does. And you know, I'll creative direct the artists, like help them if they have any questions or anything like that, and I do all the branding. But Jencey is the master of the business.
Well, I think that there's two sides to business, and there's, you know, the financial side and the marketing side. There's also just the entire business, you know, and from a creative standpoint, Cole has completely branded Sweet Tooth, and from a brand standpoint and design standpoint, like, you want to be really strong, like you want your value proposition of your business to be strong.
Right.
I think that the biggest thing with the industry that we're in is risk, and if you are not willing to take risks, then definitely don't go into business or don't go into any type of creative field unless you've got kind of like a parachute on you or some kind of buffer, because there's going to be times where you're going to like run into some things and be like, I don't know if we're going to make it, or I don't know if we're going to do this. But you know, having that team around you, I learned very early on, like, get an attorney, get an accountant, get someone who can handle stuff with the IRS. The things that we can do are really the creative things, and start to find systems that work for you. Like, there's things that just aren't very sexy, like, what payroll system am I going to use, you know?
Yeah.
And at one point, like, when we were staffed up, we had almost 20 people on payroll, and that's just a lot to do and a lot to manage.
Right.
But I think that the biggest thing is to make sure that that's all buttoned up, because it's like the more that you can do and kind of just get automated and, you know, get going, the better. The other thing too, that being startup, we put all of the money back into the business. And so that's one of the things is we've always said, like, we're going to continually invest back in the business, and investing means that we are paying artists to do installations. And that's been one of the biggest parts of the business, is to make sure that artists have living wages and that our staff, you know, are getting paid and have living wages too. And so because money has always been almost like a secondary factor to Sweet Tooth, it's really been more about like growing the platform and growing in those ways and finding more people to collaborate with, and good people too. It's been, I think it's been successful because of the support that we've had from the community, because if people weren't talking about it, if people weren't posting, if artists weren't submitting proposals and things like that, that's really like that engine that keeps it going. And then we kind of keep all the pieces organized. But it is hard, and we work with artists who also are like, once they're kind of in the family, it's like you're kind of in the family, and like they'll run into things where they're like, what do I do about this? Like, I might want to do this type of work, and like, do I have the copyright usage and things like that? So we'll also, you know, help out with those things too. And so we're learning just as much as the artists are learning.
Right.
And I think the biggest thing is like, not one person knows everything. So I've been trying to like reach out more and ask people for help, which is not something you think about all the time. Like for me, I'm like, oh, I'll just figure it out. But it's like, no, maybe like somebody else has better, you know, advice. And so just kind of like reaching out, which
is always a good thing.
Yeah.
I feel like, you know, with like what you're saying on that end, but then also to think of the sense of how you guys are transforming spaces. I mean, from nothing to what they become. Sure. That's like such a massive undertaking.
It is, and really, I mean, I'll just reiterate what Jencey said, and just one part, which is, you know, you said it's massive, it's so successful, and it's like, the part that you don't see is like, the part I'm reiterating is reinvesting, is like, I mean, so many people are like, oh man, you guys gotta be rolling. And I'm like, probably 95% of the revenue goes back into the next year's installation. Like every single year it's different, and we're trying to actually find a balance there, because that's one of the reasons why we're still around. Like COVID hit, all these, I mean, we got help through the PPP loan and stuff like that, but right. I mean, the only reason we're still afloat outside of the community is because Jencey and just several people that we, look to as mentors and stuff like that, have said, just keep reinvesting back in the business. And so now we're trying to play a balance of, well, we're going to continue to reinvest back in the business, but at the same time, like, we don't want to be super wasteful and not sustainable and just keep doing these things as fast as possible every single year. And like, now do we try to figure out a model where we're just kind of rotating these rooms out for new artists every once in a while, maybe every quarter? We haven't really decided, but like, there's got to be a way where we're not like completely tossing, an entire install in the dump.
Well, that's the other thing I want to touch on is, what is it like though to bring from season to season concepts like that to life? Like, what does that look like?
When we started Sweet Tooth Hotel, we were coming up with these big concepts, and then it was all encompassing for the artists. So chapter 1 was really based around like candy, and each room kind of had a spin on a favorite director that Cole and I liked, as far as movie director, as far as like colors and the aesthetic and the style. Chapter 2 was 1955, and so we worked with the artists to take their vision of retro future. So retro future being like the past interpretation of the future, or vice versa. If you're in the future, your interpretation is the past.
The Jetsons, basically.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And so then the next install was all fiber art, and that was our install that was being constructed in the middle of 2020, and we opened in 2020. And that one took so long that we were like, we're going to keep this one open for longer, and we're going to keep it going.
This is the one in Allen.
Yeah, we had another one. We had another one before that. You skipped one.
Oh,
We had
I
Discotheque,
skipped Discotheque.
which was more like digital light. That's where Lee Duck came in, and we worked with a lot of visual artists that do like projection mapping and all that kind of stuff. So,
So Rewind, the one that's open currently in Allen, Texas, was really our attempt at giving a combination of some of the installs that people really wanted to see that we didn't have anymore. We rebooted a couple of them, and then also presenting some new installations. And so really what we've found out is that there's so much content out there of all the installs, like photos and video, that people will show up and they're coming to see one of those installs.
be like, where the hell is this room?
Yeah, we don't have it.
Oh, that was 3 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so we're working with Aaron Bender, who was one of the brothers from Built by Bender, who worked with us on the first install and did all the build out for chapter 1.
Right.
To redesign some of those chapters that we've presented. And so that way we have our base Sweet Tooth Hotel, kind of like how museums have their like permanent collection. So we have like our version of the permanent collection of reboots of those installs, but like even better. And then we have dedicated artist rooms, and those are gonna rotate out. So the next concept that we have is Dreamland. And Dreamland really just being this open vision of allowing the artists to really interpret like, what is your dreamland? And it could be where you go when you're asleep, or it could be where you go when you're like on peyote.
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 Yeah.
I don't know. And so the permanent Sweet Tooth Hotel space will have more of our permanent collection, and then also be able to rotate out artists. Our next round of artists, we have Molly Sidnor. She's a fiber artist. She's based in Dallas. Shamsi Rumiani, Tremaine Townsend, and Bobcat and Birdie. She's in McAllen, Texas.
Okay.
And so it's a mix of concept, media, fiber, painting, sculpture, and really all Texas artists. And then we're starting to curate, for 2023, 2024, some national artists, and having different people come in.
So in this space alone, it will change as far as the artists and whatnot. Is that just because how big the space is and allows you guys to kind of dream even a bit bigger?
That's
than
part of it. Yeah, I mean, that's part of it. Like we do like rotating artists out. I mean, we also want to give other artists an opportunity and not just like continue to work with the same people. So, I mean, we do have a family of artists and creatives and designers that we work with, but, Jencey gets a lot of proposals for new spaces, and we just have to figure out if that fits or if it makes sense and if it's right.
I mean, you guys You're talking about just how the artists change from time to time. You guys have brought so much joy to people through this rotating exhibit, from employing artists and giving them a reason to continue creating, and then giving people a reason to go out and get out of their homes and take a break from the world. It's huge, super great job. I know you guys have great plans moving forward ahead. Obviously, we know about the new space. One last question is, the artists and whatnot that you have in mind when you think about this stuff, do you have them set in mind, or is it one of those things where it's just off the top, like, hey, this person's doing something really cool, can artists reach out to you? You know, like, what's that process look like?
I think we kind of come up with the theme first, and then people submit proposals, and it's not like, oh man, we should work with these people and we're going to do this.
Right.
Like we are really, I don't want to speak for both of us, but I'm really interested to see what someone is going to submit without giving them any direction.
Right.
So.
Yeah, we did one open call for artists in 2021, just to kind of see, and sometimes there's artists who haven't done a full installation yet, and so maybe they're not ready, but it allows them to also think through, like, what could I do on a big scale? We have a team, like, I'm painting and making things and screwing things into the wall, and so we have a Sweet Tooth team that also helps the artists too. So we figure out, like, how much can we help them do versus, like, how much can they do by themselves. And then we also have Sweet Tooth spaces where our team just tackles those installs 100%. And so that's been an interesting transition because we've had to learn more about construction and just how to fabricate, you know, everything.
Right.
But sometimes we'll see artists and we're like, that artist is doing, like, really cool things, and they also still may not be working at this large of a scale. And so then we'll approach them. Made by Mom, Brooke, is
Love her.
one of the artists that I had seen her through trade in Oak Cliff, and I was like, her work is amazing, let's talk with her. And the crazy thing is she had just quit her job.
Yeah.
And so she became a full-time artist, and so Sweet Tooth was her first large-scale installation like that. She'd done other ones previously, but not dedicated, you know, her on her own. And it was cool because we worked with her, and she, like, spent the night there some nights. She had her, like, sleeping bag, and she was staying in the space. And she finished it, and she finished it on the anniversary of her 1 year of becoming a full-time artist.
Wow.
So for her, that was a huge accomplishment. And so we're really excited to also just be able to give those opportunities to people who are emerging. There's people that are in our space that are seasoned, established artists. Some people we can't even work with because they're so busy sometimes, you know, and then they might come back around, you know, for another round. And so it's kind of a combination of everything. We have Bobcat and Birdie. She's a latch hook artist, and so she's usually making pieces that are like the size of a cake. Like, she has cakes that she made, and she's doing an entire room.
Wow.
This time. And so, you know, even working through concepts with the artist, because there is some maintenance to the work. You know, you put the work up, but then everyone's interacting with it. And so you really have to understand, like, how do the guests interact with it? And they want to take photos too. So, like, what's going to look good in a photo and what's going to last? Her room's going to be like floor to ceiling to wall, like carpet. And so we're like, okay, we've done this before. Like, we know we're going to have, like, little fiber dust bunnies floating around. We're going to have to, like, vacuum the walls. And so it's this combination of, like, creativity with operational. And so I think that for us, like, we've always been an art gallery. Like, we're not like an Instagram museum. We're not, like, they call it, like, an Instagram trap or anything like that. You're going to come see art. And so there's a level of fragility to all of the work that goes into the space too. And so we work with a lot of the artists to kind of bring that to a level where people can touch it and can interact with it.
Right.
And that's a really fun process to go through too.
Last question for, like, our viewers and listeners. If there are any aspiring artists out there, what suggestion would you give them in order to just kind of be out there, but also still maybe catch the eye of someone such as yourself, like perspective, you know? What advice would you give them?
I would say anybody who's interested in a large scale install, I would say just concept it out first, you know, and figure out what you want to make. Because a lot of times, like, if you have ideas on the table, or you have, you know, something that's really burning in your mind, a statement that you want to get out, put it all together and put a proposal together and just start sending it out. And, you know, a lot of people, especially us with gallery space, it's not just about the work, but it's about the mission behind it, you know. But even just starting small and creating every day, and just keep putting yourself out there. But always never be afraid to ask. We've had somebody come to the space, and she came to the space when we were working one day, and she was like, "Hi, I'm so-and-so, and I want to work with you." And I was like, wow, look, someone just showed up, showed her work, you know, and she's constantly in communication, and then we ended up working together, so.
Advice. I would say, and might sound completely canned or generic, but I would say the people that I've met that are creatives that are the happiest in their lives, just like find whatever your passion is. I know that's such a cliche word, but like find whatever your passion is, whatever that is that's making you happy, and like go after it with everything that is inside of you. I know that sounds like, well, not everybody can do. Everybody can do that, totally. Like, you have to make sacrifices. Like, you know, Brooke's a really good example. Like, she wanted to be an artist, and I'm not saying that she wasn't an artist before. She always has been, and always has been a creative and always will be. But I mean, she quit her job. It was like, this person's willing to cut off their livelihood for what they want to do, and she's done an installation, she's done murals, she's done all kinds of like mural fest for Texas, and like she's been doing like project after project after project, and it's like, I don't want to speak for her, but for me, whenever I'm designing, it doesn't feel like work. I mean, I just left a job because I was there for a year, and when I interviewed, I was like, hey, I know I'm coming on to be a creative director and like manage a team, but I need to be making something. Like, this is not work for me. Even if it's a challenge, this is like air. Like, I need it. It's if I don't have that outlet,
making something, like designing something.
Totally.
And I think people will start to realize, and a lot of people have realized that, you know, where their passion is and how they're making money. And
right.
Sometimes it doesn't always line up, but I do feel like if you put everything into it and you follow that path, like, it will line up at some point. And so yeah.
Patience.
Patience, and do the work that you want to be doing, and that's the work that you'll get hired for.
And surround yourself with only good people. Like, that's another like super cliche term. Good people, good people, good people. But you know who they are. Like, you have your friends, but then you have like people who are like encouraging you and like challenging you and pushing you. And if you're bummed or you're like not stoked about something, like, they're there to pull you up. And just like any artist, any musician, any business person, everyone, it's like, my team, my team, my team, my team. Like, they got to be good people. If they're not, like, they're pulling you down.
Keep the circle small. If people want to find the hotel, if people want to hear your music, where do they go?
Hotel?
So at Sweet Tooth Hotel, sweettoothhotel.com.
Yeah.
We have all of those things. And for music, it's French 75. We're on Spotify, YouTube.
We're on any streaming platform.
Mm-hmm.
February, new music.
February, new music.
Well, this is awesome, and I just want to tell you guys thank you again for sharing your time with us and elaborating on the story that we finally got to finish a little bit today. And I wish you guys all the success moving forward, and I'll be there for the opening in downtown to save me a spot. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
Stay tuned and explore the next Artist Uprising. Use #ArtistUprising to join the movement.